Welcome to Starbound, where every star tells a story. Today, have you ever imagined what it would be like if Earth was invaded by a technologically superior alien empire? Let's get into the story. In the vast expanse of the Milky Way galaxy, nestled on a spiral arm was the planet Hark, home to the Harkan Empire. For centuries, the Harkans had dominated their sector of the galaxy, their technological prowess and martial skill unmatched. Their empire, built on conquest and expansion, had never known defeat. The Harkons' insatiable thirst for dominion led them to scour the galaxy for new worlds to conquer, their advanced telescopes scanning the cosmos for signs of life and resources. It was during one such routine scan that they stumbled upon a small blue planet orbiting a yellow star. The planet, Earth, was teeming with life. Lush forests covered its surface, vast oceans shimmered under the sunlight, and cities glittered like jewels scattered across the land. The Harkans were intrigued. Earth was a treasure trove of resources, ripe for the taking. A council was convened in the grand hall of the Harkan Emperor's palace. The Emperor, a towering figure with eyes that burned with ambition, listened as his advisors presented their findings. They spoke of Earth's rich biodiversity, its vast mineral deposits, and its potential as a new colony. The Emperor's decision was swift and decisive. Earth would be conquered. A fleet of warships, the largest ever assembled by the Harkans, was dispatched to the blue planet. The Harkans were confident of victory. They had never encountered a civilization that could withstand their might. The Harkan fleet, a swarm of sleek, menacing vessels, warped into Earth's solar system. Their arrival was met with silence. There was no sign of any defenses, no indication that the inhabitants of this planet were even aware of the impending invasion. The Harkans sneered. This would be an easy conquest. They had underestimated the resilience and ingenuity of humanity, a mistake they would soon come to regret. The Harkan fleet, a swarm of sleek obsidian vessels, pierced the veil of Earth's atmosphere, their arrival heralded by a deafening roar that sent shockwaves across the planet. Cities, once bustling hubs of human activity, were plunged into chaos as the alien warships blotted out the sun, casting long, ominous shadows that stretched across the land. The sight of these alien invaders, their ships bristling with weaponry far beyond human comprehension, instilled a primal fear in the hearts of even the bravest souls. Governments around the world, caught off guard by this sudden and overwhelming assault, scrambled to mount a defense. Military forces were mobilized, fighter jets scrambled, and missile batteries primed. But their efforts were futile. The Harkan ships, shielded by advanced energy fields, shrugged off the human attacks as if they were mere annoyances. The alien invaders responded with a display of firepower that dwarfed anything humanity had ever seen. Beams of concentrated energy lanced down from the sky, vaporizing entire battalions and reducing military bases to molten slag. Cities were targeted next, their once proud skyscrapers crumbling under the relentless bombardment. The human resistance, though fierce and determined, was hopelessly outmatched. Soldiers fought with valor, but their courage was no match for the Harkan's superior technology. Tanks were crushed underfoot by towering alien walkers, their crews incinerated within their steel cocoons. Fighter jets were swatted from the sky like flies, their pilots barely having time to register the alien fighters that outmaneuvered them with ease. In the face of this overwhelming onslaught, humanity's spirit began to waver. The initial shock and disbelief gave way to despair and hopelessness. Cities fell, one after another, their populations either fleeing in terror or succumbing to the alien onslaught. Within weeks, the Harkans had established control over most of the planet, their victory complete and absolute. But the Harkans had made a grave miscalculation. They had underestimated the resilience of the human spirit. Even in the darkest of times, when all hope seemed lost, humanity refused to surrender. In the ruins of their shattered cities, in the depths of their despair, a spark of defiance remained. A resistance movement began to form, its members drawn from all walks of life. Soldiers, scientists, engineers, farmers, teachers, artists, all united by a common goal: to reclaim their planet and free their people from the Harkan yoke. The resistance was small and scattered, its members ill-equipped and poorly trained, but they were driven by a burning rage, a thirst for vengeance that fueled their every action. They knew that they could not match the Harkans in open combat, so they resorted to guerrilla tactics. They struck at the enemy's supply lines, sabotaged their infrastructure, and ambushed their patrols. They used their knowledge of the terrain to their advantage, disappearing into the forests and mountains when pursued. The Harkons, initially dismissive of the resistance, soon found themselves facing a growing threat. Their patrols were ambushed, their supply lines disrupted, their outposts attacked. The human rebels, though vastly outnumbered and outgunned, were proving to be a thorn in their side. The Harkons responded with brutality, their reprisals swift and merciless. Villages suspected of harboring rebels were razed to the ground, their inhabitants slaughtered without mercy. But the more the Harkons oppressed the humans, the more determined the resistance became. The war for Earth had entered a new phase, a war of attrition, fought in the shadows where the human spirit, though battered and bruised, refused to be broken. The Harkons had won the battle, but the war was far from over. The Harkon occupation was a reign of terror. Their advanced technology, initially a source of awe, became a tool of oppression, used to monitor and control every aspect of human life. Surveillance drones, their unblinking eyes glowing ominously, patrolled the skies, recording every movement, every whisper of dissent. Their presence was a constant reminder of the Harkons' absolute power, a chilling testament to humanity's subjugation. Cities, once vibrant hubs of human activity, were transformed into sterile, regimented zones. Their architecture, a testament to human creativity and ingenuity, was warped and twisted to fit the Harkons' alien aesthetics. Towering structures of gleaming metal and dark glass sprouted from the ruins of familiar landmarks, their cold, imposing facades casting long shadows of despair across the land. The human spirit, however, refused to be extinguished. In the depths of the labor camps where the strong were forced to toil under the watchful eyes of their alien overlords, whispers of rebellion spread like wildfire. In the shadows of the ravaged cities, where the weak huddled together for warmth and comfort, the embers of resistance still glowed. The resistance fighters, a diverse group united by their shared hatred of the Harkons, waged a desperate guerrilla war against their oppressors. They were farmers who had traded their plows for rifles, scientists who had turned their knowledge of technology against their captors, soldiers who had refused to surrender, and ordinary citizens who had risen up in defiance. Their tactics were unconventional, born out of necessity and desperation. They struck at the Harkon infrastructure, sabotaging their power grids, disrupting their communication networks, and ambushing their patrols. They used their knowledge of the terrain to their advantage, disappearing into the forests and mountains when pursued, only to reappear and strike again when least expected. The Harkons, initially dismissive of these human vermin, soon found themselves facing a growing problem. Their patrols were ambushed, their outposts attacked, their plans disrupted. The human resistance, though vastly outnumbered and outgunned, was proving to be a persistent and resourceful enemy. The Harkons responded with a brutal crackdown, their reprisals swift and merciless. Villages suspected of harboring rebels were razed to the ground, their inhabitants slaughtered without mercy. But the more the Harkons oppressed the humans, the more determined the resistance became. The war for Earth had entered a new phase, a bloody stalemate. The Harkons had won the initial battle, but the war was far from over. The human spirit, though battered and bruised, refused to be broken. The resistance, fueled by a burning rage and a thirst for vengeance, continued to fight, their defiance a beacon of hope in the darkest of times. The turning point in the war for Earth came from a most unlikely source, a young scientist named Ethan. Working tirelessly in a clandestine laboratory hidden beneath the ruins of a once great city, Ethan had been meticulously analyzing the salvaged remnants of Harkon technology. He dissected their power cells, deciphered their communication protocols, and studied the intricate workings of their energy shields. His tireless efforts were driven by a burning desire to find a weakness in the seemingly impenetrable armor of the Harkon war machine. After countless sleepless nights and frustrating setbacks, Ethan made a breakthrough. He discovered a subtle flaw in the design of the Harkon energy shields, a vulnerability that could be exploited with the right technology. This revelation was a beacon of hope in the darkest of times, a spark that could ignite the fires of rebellion and turn the tide of the war. Ethan shared his discovery with the leaders of the resistance, who immediately recognized its potential. They mobilized their resources, pooling their knowledge and expertise to develop weapons that could exploit this newfound weakness. Engineers and scientists worked day and night, their ingenuity fueled by desperation and a thirst for vengeance. Their efforts bore fruit in the form of a new generation of weapons. Modified rifles capable of firing energy pulses that could disrupt the Hartken's shields, grenades that could overload their power systems, and even makeshift EMP devices that could temporarily disable their advanced technology. These weapons, though crude and unreliable, gave the Resistance a fighting chance against their technologically superior foes. Armed with these new weapons, the Resistance launched a series of audacious attacks on Hartken's strongholds. They targeted military bases, crippling their command and control centers. They ambushed supply convoys, seizing valuable resources and weapons. They even managed to bring down a few Hartken ships, their wrecks providing a treasure trove of technology and further bolstering the morale of the Resistance. The Hartkens, caught off guard by this sudden surge in Resistance activity and the effectiveness of their new weapons, found themselves reeling. Their forces, once invincible, were now struggling to maintain control over a vast territory and a growing insurgency. The Resistance, sensing the Hartken's vulnerability, embarked on a daring plan to unite the scattered rebel cells across the globe. They established a covert network of communication channels, utilizing a combination of repurposed Hartken technology and ingenious adaptations of pre-invasion infrastructure. This network allowed them to coordinate their actions, share intelligence, and plan their next moves with unprecedented efficiency. The Hartkens, oblivious to this burgeoning network of defiance, remained blinded by their arrogance. They dismissed the Resistance as a minor nuisance, a fleeting inconvenience that would soon be eradicated, but they failed to comprehend the depth of human resilience, the unwavering spirit that refused to be extinguished. The war for Earth had entered a new phase, a turning point that would forever alter the course of history. The Hartkens, once masters of the galaxy, were now facing an enemy that was no longer willing to cower in fear. The humans, once scattered and fragmented, were now united in their defiance, their resolve hardened by the atrocities they had endured. The battle for Earth was far from over, but the seeds of victory had been sown, and the human spirit, rekindled and revitalized, was ready to fight for its freedom. A sense of unease permeated the once imposing Hartken fleet. The mighty warships, symbols of their empire's dominance, now drifted through Earth's orbit like wounded beasts, their hulls bearing the scars of recent battles. The bridge of the flagship, once a hive of confident activity, was now shrouded in a palpable tension. Commanders paced restlessly, their brows furrowed in concentration as they grappled with the inexplicable losses their forces were suffering. Reports flooded in from across the globe, each one more alarming than the last. Ground patrols, dispatched to quell the human insurgency, vanished without a trace. Their last transmissions garbled cries of terror and confusion. Outposts, once thought to be impregnable fortresses, were found in ruins, their defenses breached by forces unknown. The once clear skies were now contested, their fighters falling prey to invisible assailants, their wreckage bearing the marks of exotic weaponry. The Hartken High Command, accustomed to absolute control and unquestioned authority, found themselves grappling with the unfamiliar specter of doubt. Their strategies, honed through centuries of conquest, seemed ineffective against this elusive enemy. Their technology, once the envy of the galaxy, was now failing them in ways they could not comprehend. In the depths of the flagship, the Hartken scientists toiled relentlessly, their labs filled with the eerie glow of alien instruments. They dissected the remnants of their fallen comrades, their bodies bearing wounds that defied explanation. They analyzed the wreckage of their downed fighters, their armor pierced by energy beams that bore no resemblance to any known human weaponry. Theories were proposed and discarded, each one more outlandish than the last. Some whispered of ancient prophecies, foretelling the rise of a warrior race that would challenge the Hartken's dominance. Others spoke of secret alliances, clandestine pacts with other alien civilizations who sought to undermine their empire. But the truth, as the Hartkens would soon discover, was far more mundane and far more terrifying. The humans, driven to the brink of extinction, had risen from the ashes of their shattered civilization. They had learned from their mistakes, adapted to their new reality, and turned their desperation into a weapon. They had become a force to be reckoned with, a formidable enemy that would challenge the Hartken Empire to its very core. The Hartken fleet, once a symbol of invincibility, was now a shadow of its former self, its ranks thinned, its morale shaken. The humans, once viewed as a conquered species, had become a rising tide, their defiance a testament to the indomitable spirit that burned within them. The war for Earth was far from over, and the Harkons were about to learn a lesson they would never forget. Never underestimate the power of the human spirit. The weapon that would change the tide of the war was not a conventional one. It was not a missile, a bomb, or a laser beam. It was a network, a vast, intricate web of interconnected minds, a collective consciousness born from the depths of human despair and ingenuity. The project, dubbed Nexus, had been initiated by a group of neuroscientists and engineers who had sought refuge in the vast, underground bunkers that had once served as government research facilities. Driven by a shared vision of a weapon that could transcend the limitations of conventional warfare, they had pooled their knowledge and resources to create a neural interface that could link human minds together. The initial results were promising, but fraught with challenges. The human brain, a complex and delicate organ, resisted the intrusion of foreign technology. The scientists, undeterred, persevered, their efforts fueled by a desperate hope and a shared belief in the potential of their creation. After countless trials and errors, they achieved a breakthrough. They developed a neural interface that was not only compatible with the human brain, but also capable of amplifying its natural abilities. This interface, when linked to multiple individuals, could create a shared consciousness, a network of interconnected minds that could operate as a single entity. The implications of this discovery were staggering. The Nexus network could be used to coordinate the actions of the resistance with unprecedented precision. It could be used to gather and analyze vast amounts of data, providing the resistance with a tactical advantage over the Harkons. It could even be used to infiltrate the Harkons' own communication networks, turning their technology against them. But the most terrifying aspect of the Nexus network was its potential as a weapon. The collective consciousness it created could unleash a psychic assault on the Harkon forces, overwhelming their minds with fear, confusion, and despair. It could disrupt their communications, sabotage their systems, and even induce seizures and hallucinations in their pilots and soldiers. The Harkons, unaware of the existence of the Nexus network, continued their brutal campaign of oppression, oblivious to the growing threat that lurked beneath their feet. They believed that they had broken the human spirit, that their victory was assured. But they were wrong. The humans, united by the Nexus network, were about to unleash a weapon that would change the course of the war for forever. The first target of the Nexus network was the Harkon fleet orbiting Earth. The collective consciousness, amplified by the neural interfaces, reached out across the vastness of space, its tendrils of psychic energy probing the defenses of the alien warships. It found the weak points, the vulnerabilities in their systems, and exploited them with ruthless efficiency. The Harkon pilots, suddenly overcome by waves of nausea and disorientation, lost control of their fighters, their vessels spinning out of control and crashing into each other. The gunners, their vision blurred and their minds filled with terrifying hallucinations, fired their weapons randomly, their shots missing their targets and hitting their own ships instead. The command crews, their communications disrupted and their systems malfunctioning, were plunged into chaos and confusion. The Harkon fleet, once a symbol of invincibility, was now a scene of utter chaos. Ships collided, explosions erupted, and panicked cries for help filled the void of space. The humans, watching from below, could scarcely believe their eyes. The mighty Harkon fleet, the instrument of their oppression, was being torn apart from within. The destruction of the Harkon battlecruiser was a spectacle that would forever be etched into the annals of human history. It was a moment of defiance, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, and a turning point in the war for Earth. The battlecruiser, a behemoth of a vessel, had been the pride of the Harkon fleet. Its sleek, imposing form had once struck fear into the hearts of its enemies. But now, as it drifted helplessly in Earth's orbit, its once gleaming hull blackened and scarred by the relentless assault of the Nexus network, it was a symbol of the Harkon's waning power. The final blow was delivered not by a weapon of human design, but by the collective will of the human resistance. The Nexus network, its power amplified by the desperation and rage of millions of interconnected minds, focused its psychic energy on the battlecruiser, its tendrils of energy tearing through the ship's defenses like a raging storm. The battlecruiser's systems faltered, its lights flickering and dying as its power grid buckled under the strain. Its weapons, once so menacing, fell silent, their barrels drooping like the limbs of a dying animal. Its crew, their minds addled by the psychic assault, staggered through the corridors, their eyes wide with terror, their screams echoing through the empty halls. The final moments were swift and brutal. The battlecruiser's reactor, overloaded and destabilized, erupted in a cataclysmic explosion. The ship, once a symbol of Hartcan might, was reduced to a cloud of debris, its fragments scattering across the vastness of space. The humans, watching from below, erupted in cheers and jubilation. They had struck a blow against their oppressors, a blow that would reverberate throughout the galaxy. The destruction of the battlecruiser was a message to the Hartcans, a declaration of defiance that would echo through the ages. Humanity would not be subjugated. It would not be broken. It would fight for its freedom, no matter the cost. The Hartcans, reeling from this unexpected loss, were forced to reassess their strategy. Their confidence, once unshakable, was now shattered. They had underestimated the humans, their resilience, their ingenuity, and their unwavering determination. They had unleashed a war they could not win, a war that would ultimately lead to their downfall. The destruction of the battlecruiser sent shockwaves through the Hartcan fleet, shattering their illusion of invincibility. The High Command, realizing the gravity of the situation, ordered a tactical retreat, their remaining ships falling back to a defensive formation. But the humans, emboldened by their recent victory, were not content to let them escape unscathed. A new plan was devised, a daring gamble that could either turn the tide of the war or spell doom for the resistance. The Nexus Network, its power growing with each passing day, would launch a massive psychic assault on the Hartcan flagship, the heart of their command and control. The flagship, a colossal vessel bristling with weaponry, was the pride of the Hartcan fleet. It was a symbol of their power, a mobile fortress that could lay waste to entire planets. Its destruction would be a crippling blow to the Hartcan war effort, a victory that could turn the tide of the war in favor of the humans. But the flagship was also heavily defended, its shields reinforced and its weapons primed for a devastating orbital bombardment. The Harkon High Command, aware of the threat posed by the Nexus Network, had taken every precaution to protect their flagship. They had deployed additional fighter squadrons, reinforced their shields, and prepared their weapons for a preemptive strike. The humans knew the risks involved in their plan, but they also knew that they had no other choice. They had to strike at the heart of the Hartcan fleet, cripple their command and control, and disrupt their plans for orbital bombardment. In the depths of the underground bunkers, the Nexus Network hummed with activity. Millions of minds, linked together by a network of neural interfaces, focused their collective will on the Hartcan flagship. They visualized its destruction, their thoughts and emotions coalescing into a powerful psychic force. The Hartcans, sensing the impending attack, braced themselves for impact. Their shields flared to life, their weapons hummed with barely contained energy, and their crews prepared for battle. They had underestimated the humans once, but they would not make the same mistake again. The battle for Earth had reached its climax. The fate of humanity, the future of their planet, hung in the balance. The humans, united by a common cause and a shared destiny, were ready to make their final stand. The Hartcan flagship, a colossal testament to their empire's might, hung ominously in Earth's orbit. Its hull, a dark monolith against the star-strewn canvas of space, gleamed with a cold metallic sheen. The massive cannons, their muzzles glowing with an eerie blue light, were trained on the planet below, ready to unleash a devastating bombardment that would leave nothing but ruin in its wake. The tension within the ship was palpable, a silent dread that permeated every corridor and compartment. The crew, hardened veterans of countless battles, felt a knot of anxiety tighten in their stomachs. The recent losses, the inexplicable malfunctions, the growing sense of unease, it all pointed to an enemy far more formidable than they had anticipated. On the bridge, the Hartkon commander, a grizzled veteran with eyes as cold as the vacuum of space, watched the countdown timer with a grim expression. He had given the order to commence the bombardment, a decision he had hoped would quell the human insurgency and reassert their dominance over the planet. But doubt gnawed at the edges of his mind, a nagging feeling that they were walking into a trap. He glanced at the tactical display, his eyes scanning the readings from the ship's sensors. Everything appeared normal. The human defenses were minimal, their resistance futile. But the commander couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. There was a presence, an unseen force that seemed to be watching, waiting, preparing to strike. Meanwhile, deep beneath the surface of the Earth, the Nexus Network reached its apex. Millions of minds, interconnected and amplified, focused their collective will on the Hartcan flagship. They visualized its destruction, their thoughts and emotions coalescing into a psychic maelstrom of unparalleled power. The attack was sudden and overwhelming. The Hartcan crew, their minds already strained by the impending battle, were caught completely off guard. A wave of nausea washed over them, their vision blurring, their ears ringing with a dissonant chorus of voices. The bridge erupted into chaos, crew members collapsing to the floor, their bodies racked with convulsions. The ship's systems, already pushed to their limits by the activation of its weapons, buckled under the strain. Lights flickered and died, alarms wailed, and communication channels filled with a cacophony of static. The once proud flagship was now a crippled behemoth, its once formidable defenses rendered useless. The psychic assault breached the ship's reactor core, the heart of its power. The core, already unstable from the strain of powering the ship's weapons and shields, surged with uncontrolled energy. A chain reaction was initiated, a cascade of failures that would ultimately lead to the ship's demise. From Earth, the humans watched in awe and horror as the Hartcan flagship erupted in a blinding flash of light. A shockwave rippled through space, buffeting the remaining Hartcan ships and sending debris hurtling in all directions. The once mighty symbol of the Hartcan Empire, reduced to a cloud of expanding gas and debris, marked a turning point in the war, a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity and the power of collective will. The surviving Hartcan vessels, their once proud fleet now a scattered and demoralized remnant, limped back towards their homeworld, Hark. The once gleaming hulls of the warships, now scarred and pitted from the relentless human assaults, bore silent witness to their humiliation. The journey home was a somber one, the silence within the ships broken only by the hushed whispers of the crew and the intermittent crackle of faulty communication systems. The atmosphere was thick with despair, the once unshakable confidence of the Hartcan warriors replaced by a gnawing fear of the unknown. News of their devastating defeat had reached Hark long before their arrival, plunging the Empire into turmoil. The planet, once a beacon of technological advancement and military might, was now a shadow of its former glory. The sprawling cityscape, once a testament to their architectural prowess, now bore the scars of neglect and decay. The towering obelisks and imposing monuments, once symbols of their dominance, now stood as silent sentinels over a crumbling empire. The once bustling thoroughfares, once teeming with the hustle and bustle of commerce and industry, were now eerily silent. The few remaining citizens moved with a furtive haste, their eyes darting nervously as they whispered amongst themselves, their voices filled with fear and uncertainty. The once proud Hartcan warriors, their armor tarnished and their spirits broken, returned home to a society on the brink of collapse. Within the opulent halls of the Emperor's palace, the air was thick with tension. The Emperor, a once mighty figure who had ruled with an iron fist, now sat slumped on his throne, his eyes hollow and his shoulders stooped. The weight of defeat had shattered his spirit, leaving him a mere shadow of his former self. His advisors, once sycophants who had sung his praises, now openly questioned his judgment and plotted his downfall. The news of the fleet's destruction had ignited a firestorm of dissent within the Hartcan High Command. The once united front, bound by a shared belief in their empire's invincibility, was now fractured and divided. Accusations of incompetence and treason were hurled back and forth, the once solid foundations of their society crumbling under the weight of their collective failure. The defeat at Earth had not only exposed the flaws in their military strategy, but it had also revealed deep-seated societal issues that had long been festering beneath the surface. The Hartcan Empire, built on conquest and expansion, had neglected the welfare of its own people. The resources that could have been used to improve the lives of their citizens were instead squandered on military campaigns and the pursuit of galactic domination. The once prosperous empire was now teetering on the brink of economic collapse, its coffers drained, its industries faltering, and its people disillusioned. In the midst of this chaos, a new movement emerged, led by a charismatic young Hartcan named Kale. He was a visionary, a leader who saw the folly of the old ways and dared to dream of a different future. He spoke of peace, of unity, of a society that valued cooperation over conquest, compassion over cruelty. His words resonated with the people, offering them a glimmer of hope in the darkest of times. The Hartcan Empire, once a beacon of power and prosperity, was now at a crossroads. The path they chose would determine their fate, whether they would continue down the path of self-destruction or forge a new destiny for themselves. The humans, through their resilience and ingenuity, had inadvertently become the catalyst for change. their defiance a testament to the indomitable spirit that could not be extinguished. In the aftermath of the HarkCon retreat, a wave of jubilation swept across the earth. Cities, once silenced by fear and oppression, erupted in spontaneous celebrations. The streets thronged with people, their faces alight with joy and relief. They danced, sang, and embraced one another, their collective spirits soaring after years of darkness and despair. The human resistance, once a scattered and fragmented network, now stood united, their victory a testament to their resilience and ingenuity. They emerged from the shadows, their faces etched with the scars of battle, but their eyes shining with newfound hope. They had faced the might of a galactic empire and prevailed, proving that even the most advanced technology could not break the human spirit. The task of rebuilding their shattered world was a daunting one, but the humans faced it with renewed determination. They salvaged what they could from the wreckage of their cities, their hands calloused and bloodied, but their spirits unbroken. They pooled their knowledge and resources, their minds sharpened by the hardships they had endured. They worked tirelessly, day and night, their efforts fueled by a shared vision of a brighter future. The Harken technology, once a tool of oppression, now became a catalyst for progress. The humans, with their innate curiosity and adaptability, quickly mastered the alien systems, reverse engineering their weapons, power sources, and communication devices. They integrated these technologies into their own, creating a hybrid of human ingenuity and alien innovation. The salvaged Harkan warships, once symbols of terror and subjugation, were now repurposed into a formidable human fleet. Their sleek, imposing hulls, now adorned with the insignia of the human resistance, patrolled the skies, a silent warning to any would-be invaders. The once empty space docks, now bustling with activity, churned out new ships, each one more advanced than the last. But the humans were not content with merely rebuilding their world. They wanted to ensure that they would never again be vulnerable to alien aggression. They embarked on a massive project to fortify their planet, turning it into an impregnable fortress. They constructed a network of orbital defense platforms armed with advanced energy weapons capable of vaporizing entire fleets. They established early warning systems capable of detecting incoming threats from across the galaxy. They even developed a planetary shield, a shimmering barrier of energy that could deflect even the most powerful attacks. The Earth, once a vulnerable target, was now a fortress world, a beacon of defiance in the vastness of space. The humans, once a conquered species, had risen from the ashes of their defeat to become a force to be reckoned with. They had proven that the human spirit, when pushed to the brink, could achieve the impossible. They had shown the galaxy that humanity, united and determined, could overcome any obstacle and emerge stronger than ever before. The HarkCon invasion had been a trial by fire, a test of their resilience and ingenuity. They had passed the test, and in doing so, they had secured their place among the stars.